All right, so I've made some adjustments after thinking about some of the suggestions and doing a decent bit of testing. I found that build that a mix that I'm fairly happy with. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. The land base is still the same as it was, 30 lands now. So what I've done is I've pulled out Divine Offering and I went ahead and put Fragmentize in. I can get basically the same effect for the majority of targets, other than Gilded Lotus. The majority of things that I'm going to hit, Fragmentize will hit for half the mana. And that's pretty critical when you're trying to take out that first turn Soul Ring, or if you're going second and they play a second turn Sylvan Library. It's also very key for getting out from under a Winter Orb. If you ever get caught under a Winter Orb at the wrong time, you could potentially just play a white source, fragmentize it, and drive on. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I've also actually cut, I wanted to put Anguish Unmaking in here. I actually ended up cutting Copy Artifact for Anguish Unmaking. The reason is basically that I have so many Artifact and Enchantment kill cards now, if you count the two kill anythings plus the three others, that I may not have as many targets for a Copy Artifact when it shows up. And it was designed originally to be a way to answer a first turn Soul Ring in a sense, because I could copy it and at least keep up with them, hopefully use the mana more effectively than they are. But if I'm able to just kill it, I think that's probably better. I would really like to have copy in here just because, hey, having even another answer for that first turn Soul Ring is always a good thing. But something had to go, and it's the one card that can sometimes be redundant. If I have enough mana, it's just more of what I already have that isn't all that particularly relevant. Um, it's just one of those cards that it's good enough to make the cut every time you can make the cut, but it's not so critical that you can't cut it and still be fine. And so I went ahead and pulled it with all that in mind. Basically, it's like a -1 mana rock, but again, it's kind of like the least reliable of them. Uh, After cutting it, I realized I wanted to put one more card in the stack, and that card is right here, Amnesia. I'm not. Let's not say that I'm 100% sure this belongs, but I have a strong hunch that it does, because the ability to play draw go is actually enhanced by having more artifact and enchantment removal and more just general disruption, because that means I get to save counter spells for actual like spells versus permanents. I can let more permanents through and deal with them after the fact. So um, when I'm playing draw go, there has to be a goal or purpose in mind, and one of those purposes is to build up enough mana base to push through a game-winning spell. Amnesia is a game-winning spell. It's also a way to punish somebody if they get antsy and try to go on their turn. Um, you know, and it's also one of the few. Weirdly enough, it's one of the few cards that can recover from something like, say, the opponent necros for 1,000,000 and has unlimited hand size. If they get that combo out against you, you actually can recover with an Amnesia where you could not with a Mind Twist. Now, do I want to put a card in for that reason? No, but it is worth noting just because you might as well think about all the things your cards can do. By adding Amnesia, I had to cut one more card, and for the same reasoning as the Copy Artifact, I actually cut Phyrexian Metamorph. I mean, of course, I like being able to copy uh, artifacts, but we talked about that. I like being able to copy creatures too, especially certain ones that have game-changing effects. But often the case is that I don't I don't really want those cards resolving in the first place. So I might want to copy a acidic slime. Yeah, that's great, but frequently whatever their acidic slime killed on my side of the table is worse for me than whatever I'm copying and killing on their side of the table, and it'd have been better off if it hadn't hit the table in the first place. Um, with the amount of ramp we have in here and another way to wreck my opponent's hand, I've increased the opportunities for preventing cards like that from hitting the table in the first place. So we'll see how it works out, but I kind of like it, and it actually comes up in this game right here. So if we can get started. Um, Now what's the client doing to me? Okay, all right. Anyway, sorry, that was my fault. I actually had it up. Can't blame the client for everything, only most things. Anyway, so I've got, of course, I'm playing Oloro. My opponent's playing Atraxa. So Atraxa is a very, out of the four colors that you could use, um, I don't know. As far as if you want to play four colors and you want them to be those colors, this probably is the right commander. It's a very attractive commander to use. It has some interesting things you can do, such as obviously with planeswalkers, but also with cards like Umezawa's Jite and Everflowing Chalice. There may be a few others that I'm not considering right now. I would probably consider using the lands that you charge, which you can remove charge counters from, to add a number of mana to your mana pool equal to the number of charge counters that you remove. I would consider playing cards like that as well if I were playing Atraxa. It's a little tough because you're in four colors, but I mean, if you can take advantage of ways to get value out of playing your commander, then you might as well try. At any rate, um, good card. I've got an interesting hand though. So I've got, of course, if I was going first, it would be so much better. But that's often the case because if I were going first turn map, second turn sack it, third turn Lotus off a workshop that I would fetch, turn four, hand crushing. Right about the time that he plays, if he plays, turn, he would be on three mana there. So I don't know. Going second, on the other hand, it's still quite saucy. I figured it was reasonable to keep it. I've got disruption, I've got ramp, and all I need really is just some business. And then I find a mana vault. So turn three amnesia is looking fantastic. So boy, that was one of the other things that I hadn't even considered when I added amnesia, was that mana vault suddenly becomes this incredibly scary thing, because it's even more ways that you can just uh, do gross things off of an early mana vault. So anyway, or Grim Monolith. So he plays turn three Liliana, and this is actually gonna kind of change the flavor of how this game plays out. But fortunately, I do have plenty of mana sources to pitch. So I'll go ahead and throw away City of Brass right now. He throws away a land, which is great. Amnesia does not hit lands, so he actually did me a huge favor there, although he doesn't realize it. So I was trying to work out on this turn, is there some way I can get Lotus into Amnesia? And there just isn't. There's no way. You can try and figure it out yourself, but it just can't happen. So then the thought was Lotus or Amnesia. So what is the right call? Now, if I had a counter spell in my hands, I could stop his commander from coming down. Then it would clearly be Lotus. I'd throw away a land to his Vest, and then I would counter his commander and then follow up with an Amnesia. That would be ideal, but I've drawn only mana sources this game, so I have literally had one non-mana source card. I decide that with that in mind, I want to make using Liliana as painful as possible, since I can't really stop his commander from coming down. And so I see this Signet, another Liliana, Strip Mine, Malady. Now, what's nice about this is if he plays, he needs four colors for his commander. So if he plays Temple of Malady tapped, he can't actually play his commander, and then he would have to Liliana either Strip Mine or his draw phase, whatever he drew. So starting to get pretty painful, and most likely nothing's going to be better than Strip Mine, so he would have to throw away his draw phase. I get a whole nother turn, I throw away a land or whatever, and then we go fetch. Like, we work our way into Gilded Lotus. I mean, it looks pretty good with this play. So I had not considered, so I'm going to go ahead and throw away the non-blue source there. I had not considered that he might just strip mine me, and he strip mines me for black, which is interesting. People normally hit white. Quite interested in what the thinking was. I guess because the demonic tutor, etc., the tutor packages are so much stronger, but just from old school players almost always hit white, probably because of, classically, control decks are blue white splash black. So in this case, it actually worked out better for me because Catacombs could get white, but it would be a non-blue source, but it can fetch black as a blue source. So I drew Vampiric Tutor. I was actually hoping, really hoping right here, I would just get a garbage card that I could throw away to Vess so that I could pitch, so I could safely pitch, so I could play, set myself up for Lotus and safely pitch. The problem here is that if I play Vampiric Tutor, I'm actually down a card and only Lotus is left. So I don't really want to play Vampiric Tutor. I could sack Map in response to Vess, and to make matters worse, so we know that the other card in his hand is Temple of Malady. We drew a land here, so if he hadn't drawn a land that comes into play untapped, he would have had to play the Temple of Malady and had another turn before having to deal with his commander. But because he drew a land here, I'm actually going to have to throw away Gilded Lotus. As crazy as that is, I had a first turn map and I'm throwing away a Lotus a few turns later. It's amazing. Even with a map and a vault, it's a weird game. But anyway, he plays his commander, so he's going to get to proliferate Liliana. So I'm going to go ahead and fetch now and fetch again. And let's see, if you want to pause it right here, here's a moment for you to try to figure out, what am I trying to do? What am I thinking is going to help me get out of this situation that I'm in? So hopefully you've thought about that and paused it, but I should have brought up the deck list. I suppose I can do that to give you the opportunity. So that's the list. So yeah, pause that if you want, and then let's see what you think. Well, this is what I decided to do. I decided to trust my deck. So I vamp, and I have to trust that if I draw enough cards, I can win this game. So I also needed to hit mana, and this will ensure that the plus of Vess won't hurt me. And when you minuses it, I'm going to be able to set even more cards aside. So I'll go ahead and over Necro here, hoping to get a Swords to Plowshares for Atraxa, and at least clear up one problem. But I don't want to over Necro too, like I don't want to go too crazy with it, because first off, it hits me for 4 every turn. Secondly, I'm hoping to get some more cards set aside in response to his ultimate if he goes ultimate. So I have to discard here. I could have a 4th island if I just 1, 2, 3. I just need one more blue, and I make the mistake, I think, of keeping the best lands in my hand as opposed to keeping an island for that shackles. But I think the line of thought was that he was going to ultimate Liliana, and I was going to potentially lose blue sources. I didn't know what other color I might lose, and I wanted Command Tower for the flexibility to replace this, and I wanted Wasteland just for the potential for disrupting him, to keep, so that if I can answer Atraxa once, I hopefully won't have to answer it again, because with him plussing up Vess, it's going to be hard for him to, like, he's going to have to hit land drops, and I want to pinch his mana and keep cards in his hand so he keeps discarding to that thing. Anyway, so he ultimates, and I go ahead and Necro in response. 7 more cards. And he separates Necropotence with the Hallowed Fountain, and then my options are or the other 3. So I keep the 3 mana sources over the 1. Alright, I do at least get a draw phase, which is nice. Drew Fragmentize, no targets though. I really want to Wasteland that Tomb, but I don't have time because I've got 7 cards coming, so I want to dump as many cards as I can into play. Plus I need to get mana on the table. Okay, so there we are. So again, I have 2 disenchants and no targets, so I'm gonna throw away those, and then I'm throwing away Dark Tutelage because I don't have the life and time to use it. I'm throwing away Worn Powerstone because I'm not gonna need it in a moment, thanks to Fairy. He hits another land drop, so I respond to Liliana's discard effect, looking for I really liked everything in my hand, so I wanted to have the most options when facing the discard, and I actually drew a card that I'm happy to throw away. Ponder. Ponder's fine, but I have a Sensei's Divining Top, so it's not like it's a particularly painful loss. So we can now deploy Teferi. So the trick is I can deploy Teferi, but I need to make sure that I kill his commander before he gets a chance to attack and kill Teferi. And Teferi will have 4 counters after untapping, so I need to I'm going to have to either factor fiction or merchant scroll some way to get his command off the table. And I decide merchant scroll is the guaranteed way. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I um, scroll for teachings, teachings for swords. Swords is commander. Then wasteland his ancient tomb, replay the top and activate it, setting an island on top of a vindicate. Waste his tomb, and now he's down. He's short a card. He's short a mana, so unless he draws mana, he can't actually replay his commander, which is pretty important, I think. Now, all 3 cards in my hand I want to keep, and which is exactly why I put Island on top of my deck. He pluses up his commander. He did not draw a land, so this is fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to Disrupting Scepter him with his own card. Since I have the majority of cards, and it's actually working out in my favor. So I pitch an island. He pitches a 7-drop. And we're in pretty good shape now. So there's the top that we knew was there. And underneath the top, of course, is Vindicate. So I float some mana. Use Teferi again. Factor Fiction. And I could have... So I Factor Fiction. I could have just played top, activated it, and then went that route. But I don't know. I felt like it was fine to just Factor Fiction and do it this way. And as it turns out, it was pretty good because most of those cards, I don't really like. That's 5 draw steps I don't want to have. I just really want the Vindicate out of all of that. But if you look at the piles, no matter how he separates it out, let's say if he puts, there's no way for him to reasonably prevent me from getting multiple cards here. Because let's say he puts Vindicate in one pile and everything in the other pile. I'll take the other pile. Then I can just bounce Liliana Vess in response to her own ability. Or I could just bounce her. In fact, I have so much mana right now, I would just bounce her and Mind Twister away. So if he puts Vindicate, that was if he puts Vindicate by itself. And if he puts Vindicate in any other configuration, then obviously I can take Vindicate plus a card. And so, like I said, there's no way for him to separate this out where he gets to keep his commander and I get less than 2 cards at a minimum. I think he realizes that. He's thinking about it. He's looking at the board state and he decides, pack it in. He scoops, which is really interesting because I guess he could have drawn a land and played his commander and maybe had something, but I guess he's under the impression, and it's probably a very reasonable impression, but does this thing, it flies, right? Yeah, this is a flying, this thing's crazy. This is a Sarah Angel smashed on top of a very slow mirror universe that also proliferates. It's kind of a nice card. But anyway, he could have, so had he played it out, and assuming he drew a land and played his commander would be his play, and he doesn't know, of course, that I have a counter. I mean, I guess he's just assuming. If I did not, well, I mean, I haven't played a counter this entire game. So if I did not have a counter, if he were to draw his commander and play it, then I couldn't, block with my commander. I'd have to dig for a solution, or he'd be able to attack and kill Teferi and possibly do something. Alternately, maybe he could draw Sylvan Library, which, I've already thrown away 2 disenchants, or he could draw Necropotence. So, like, if I were him, I don't think I give up right now. I think I feel like giving up, but I would at least see what I top decked first, and then make the decision. Either way, though, we know that I have a counterspell, so it was over. Nothing he could draw was going to do anything. And then we were going to top and Teferi our way into more control cards and finish this game. So the Amnesia was not particularly like crazy here, but it caused him to lose a lot of... he lost a lot of cards because his hand was much smaller, and so perhaps it was still pretty good. And obviously, outside of the Vess, in nearly any other situation, a turn 3 Amnesia for your hand for all of the business cards is frequently just a game over. I think I have a couple of games where I've added Amnesia and it's similar to exactly what happens is ramp, Amnesia, scoop. Exactly like a Mind Twist, even though they still get to keep lands. Heck, frequently enough, they don't have any lands to keep. They miss a land drop, and then you amnesia them, or you waste or strip mine them and slow them down, and also kind of run them out of lands, and then amnesia them. The other thing you can do with amnesia that is pretty fantastic is you can end of turn uh, potentially cyclonic rift them, make them pick up everything, and then you can amnesia it all away. Um, which would normally cost 8 mana with a Mind Twist. It's 7 for the Rift and then 8 for the Twist. You can do it at the price of 7 for the Rift, and if you have the 7 for the Rift, assuming you have 3 blue, then you've got 6 for Amnesia, which means you can save. You've got a bit of a discount that way, which is kind of nice. I mean, I don't know. I like the card, but we'll see. We'll see. So that's it. Those are the changes. Thank you to everybody who replied on the last video for the suggestions. I think that they have made a difference. I do think the deck is actually better. Um, I talked a lot about this card because I really like the way that it makes this deck so much scarier to face, because you just don't know if you're going to get to keep your hand. Um, but in general, like the removal is just so nice. Having all the additional removal to deal with things means that you can tap out a little bit more aggressively. You can play more mana sources early, and know that it's fine. Whatever comes through, you can mostly deal with. You can also recover more easily using a card like Yawgmoth's Will, where you can play out a flurry of removal, whereas if in your graveyard you had just a flurry of counterspells, Will not so useful in that situation. So it makes Will stronger. Anything that makes Will stronger is all right in my book. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.